So just to give you a little bit more about this will fix multiple issues in a footprint that is available. For about the last month, I've thoroughly looked at the Carta and ways that I would personally improve it um, for me to use it. I primarily use a peak. Um, there are tons of options about the Carta that I wish the peak had. And then I thought about it. My only real gripe with the Carta was the size of the atomizer, the issue with spillage and leaking, and then the Carta never having anywhere designed to put it. You know, things like the peak of having that angled glass, not only being in just looks, also being in design to give claim always somewhere to go to stay out of that air path. With the Carta, when I had used it for maybe a week or two at max, um, even a gram through it, it was it was in bad shape, and that was every other day cleaning it, or cleaning it like you're supposed to, and yeah, I just couldn't keep it clean. I couldn't really get the 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 dabs that I want out of it. It just wasn't working for me. So I was just like, I'm kind of done with it, and just kind of went back to what I was using. So through this, the amount of people that have reached out, and then the amount of people that have contributed in some way to try to fix issues with the caps and things like that in the Carta. There are ways to do it, but like I said, the footprint, and I said this kind of in the comments. So the footprint of the atomizer was designed one way. When when silicon carbide started to gain popularity through the marketplace, it was an addition to this, and it was something that was never called, or at least in the design that they executed to the marketplace, it was never called for this atomizer. And the reason for that is a couple things. And the silicon carbide, if you look right now, you'll notice that the side walls of it are slightly thicker. So when you add in that additional thickness to something that is already touching a metal cap, on top of it, adding whatever you want to call it, delayed or extended heating cycles in the Carta Crimson, now you are basically creating the perfect storm to for melting caps. You're taking a material that is hungry for energy, hungry to take in that heat from that atomizer, just figuratively speaking, and immediately transferring it to a metal cap quickly. So you take that with the extended cycles in the Crimson, it's like I said, it was essentially designed to melt and cook this cap. So I started looking at multiple ways to fix this, and the first way was 3G SAC for the Carta. And what that entailed was introducing more air into that chamber to get it to cool down. We got to get the temperature down. And with, like I said, again, the footprint, the only logical way to do that was to take some of the fitting or the lip, the recessed area in the bottom of the stock bucket. We take that out, and we basically build it into the bottom of the bucket. So it's taken out here, we pull the bucket down, and then what we do is we also shorten the overall height of the insert itself. One of the other things that we did was thicken the sidewalls by point one, something very small. Point one, I would think it was like 0.125 millimeters, so we could actually have that cap come down and still grip just the sidewalls, the smallest amount of surface area possible. So what it did was it took the insert out of the top cap, touching all that metal, and basically just like I said, just cooking the top cap. We have it now only touching 4 spots on the SICK inserts, and it worked. It brought temps way down. What else? That's essentially all it fixed. You know, it gave really good flavor. It gave really powerful, huge hits. But what I had explained in videos prior, and even through some of the descriptions and some of the people that I spoke to that bought Carta inserts, you know, telling them like this is not going to be the same. This is different. You know, this is what you need. You're going to want to use a cap. You're going to want a Carbide. You know, we're introducing a lot of airflow in an already very tiny chamber. So kind of what I expected to happen was what happened. And this is not, yeah, I do this, overloading or under temping it, you know, going for maybe a little bit too low of a dab. So in an insert like that, being as small as it is, we want to try to get as much to vaporize as fast as possible so we don't create a boiling effect. And, you know, through that boiling effect, introducing air, cannonball effect, so on and so on. So again, looking at that, you know, it wasn't the best option. So I went and I pulled all the Carta inserts from 3G like 3 or 4 days ago. And just because this was progressing, that was doing fine, but it just wasn't at least a viable option. It still wasn't what I wanted to use a Carta. That's the best way to say it. I still wasn't like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna go for my Carta over whatever other device I'm using. So went back to the drawing board and kind of figured out a way to work in the footprint. And the way to do that is to exactly what I say, to work in the footprint. So what I did was we looked at temperatures and things like that. And right now, I'll say this right now. Right now, I can't access the brain of the card. I can't access the motherboard of the card. I know I will be able to. I know it's there. I just haven't gotten that far yet because this is like step one for me to, I guess, adopt a card as my own to use daily. So we'll get there. But yeah, you know, I started just looking at it saying, you know what do I have to do to enjoy this thing and use it daily? I got to increase the diameter of the insert. It's the only way possible. And like I said, I looked at it, could try to blow the atomizer up past the collar, something up to 20 millimeter, 22 millimeter, something like that. But I can extend this video and we'll talk about it later. It just wasn't, it wasn't the best option. This is the best option. The best option was to work in the footprint. And what we're doing, and to run it long story short, by increasing the overall volume of the insert itself, we're bringing down the overall temperature of the atomizer, because all of that heat, all of that energy is being fed into that insert, right? But that insert is 30% larger. So we're now taking the same amount of cycle, you know, the time that it takes for your Carta to heat up. That same cycle, we are now asking it to heat an insert that is 3 times as large as the one that was in there. It's a lot to ask, but the Carta is a very powerful device. So now that you can kind of understand, we're going to take something that was initially this big and just blow it up. So now the Carta's horsepower kind of matches what its internals are. You know, this was like I said, it's like a shell casing, you know, and it just wasn't enjoyable for me. So that being said, with that extended volume, the Carta will heat it. And I will say this, the Crimson Carta will be the one that will be almost perfectly adaptable, just because of its cycles. So with the original Carta, what I do, and I'll show this later, is when this buzzes, I'll normally wait anywhere between 2 to 3 extra seconds after, because what I'm waiting for is I'm waiting for as much material inside of the insert to vaporize as possible, so that there's no boiling going on, so I'm not introducing airflow, like I said. So, but that is kind of where we're going, and through that, we've gone this way, we've gone this way, and with the new machine top cap, we kind of got more headroom. And then through the same aspect, we're only grabbing the areas that we need to. So overall, atomizer temperatures are much lower, to the point where you could still use things like just regular plastics rather than like thermoplastics and stuff like Ultim, Delrin, peaks and things like that. So that's where we stand, and kind of where it's going to go from here is based on how many people would want something like this, because this market is pretty small, and I just don't know how many of you are out there, how many of you have the issue, and then how many of you would want something like this. And that's going to base on the direction that we go. So it could be one of two things. It could be a kit where you would get an entire new top cap and the insert, and that would be it. You would just use it with your existing stuff, or it would be an entirely new atomizer received from us. So it would still be, a Carta atomizer. It would just, I guess, be rebuilt or broken down, and then all of our accessories and different parts would be added to it, and then you would just keep your top cap forever. So even if you weren't rebuilding atomizers and you were getting different atomizers, you could always use the top cap. You could always use that insert. It's more or less the top cap and the insert will need to stay together, not so much the atomizer. So you can use things like the Everlast atomizer, or just the initial, the regular atomizer, which I actually prefer. I have coils, so, but I just prefer them just because of things that I do with my Carta, but I'll get into that. So I'm going to end it here. That should give you guys at least enough to where we stand. Once we get some more interest back, and I get some more feedback from people, and I kind of get an idea of how many, of these that we'll need to produce. I don't know if it's 50. I don't know if it's 500. I don't know if it's 5,000. I no clue. So it's going to come down to that. It'll come down to whether it's run here, whether it's something that's mass produced overseas, what materials we use, what price point we hit. There's a lot. So being that this is all new, that's why I'm going to do it this way, just to try to explain as much as I can to as many people as possible. All right, guys, thanks.